pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call the July 5th, 2018 village board meeting to order. Roll call shows that everyone is in attendance. Number 3, agenda changes. There are none. Move on to consent agenda. A, November 21st, 2019 regular board meeting minutes. B, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village as presented in the packet. Are there any questions? If not, could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 5, public hearing. A, 2020 budget.
We have no public here, so, but essentially if anybody has comment, they can feel free to basically solicit for comment when needed on the budget.
There is no one making a comment. We will now close the public hearing. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. There are none. 7, committee reports. A, library board.
We met on Tuesday, finalized wage plans for 2020, and I think that was it.
Any questions for Pat? We'll move to number 8, unfinished business from previous meetings, and there is none. 9, new business. A, appoint election inspectors for the January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021 term.
I'll just report that there were no names were received from the Republican or Democratic parties to be appointed to serve as election inspectors. Therefore, the village will be appointing non-affiliated inspectors for the next term.
Do we need a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the election inspectors as listed.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. B, R-23-19, resolution adopting the 2020 budget and approving the tax levy.
So what I am handing you right now is my summary. This will go hand in hand with the booklet. Everybody has a booklet, correct? The budget booklet? Everybody get a copy of the new one, updated? You don't have one, but I'll give you one. Booklet. And I am not going to take a percentile of credit for this. I'm going to give a lot of it to everybody that works in that office across the hallway, because this isn't my budget. This was a well orchestrated, very strong team approach. So I will give. I'm always one to give credit where credit's due, and I will hand that off to them. I guess it's got my name on it, but there's a lot of parts that went into production here. So if you go to the levy tab, and they're in order, there are a few highlighted portions that we need to talk about. As projected, the 2020 budget was balanced utilizing a 15-cent increase per thousand. So if you look at your first highlighted area on there in your budget book, we did indeed raise the TID out portion of our calculation from $8.42 per thousand to $8.57 per thousand. That is what I asked for in our earlier meeting. Okay? So this is a TID out figure. The intent is to keep this number constant in future years to stabilize the village's portion of the levy. $8.50 is the mill rate associated with village services. Okay, so the equalized tax rate for the village saw a significant increase of 9.47%, which in turn equates to a reduction of 43 cents per thousand in the TID-in portion of the tax assessment. So if you look at that 9.47% is your next highlighted area. All told, that raises the entire TID or TID-in portion of our tax levy to $8.87 per thousand. On that summary then gives you exactly what our tax bill will represent moving forward. So if you look at it, Outagamie County is $4.31 per thousand, Village of Hortonville $8.87 per thousand, School District bumped up to $9.22 per thousand, Fox Valley Tech $1.16, the Lake District 21 cents per thousand, and then there's a $1.48 school tax levy credit. All told, the 2020 levy equates to $22.29 per thousand. That is a 72-cent reduction per thousand for village residents. Okay, any questions on that, on the levy?
Yeah, is that more than, that 72 cents more than what you had projected before, or is that the same? Some of the numbers that.
It's a lot more.
It's what?
It's a lot more. We were hoping to
That's what I
reduce by about 15 to 20 cents, and
Yeah.
we're coming in at 72 cents per
What's the
thousand. So
credit, the school tax credit? Where's
Correct.
it come, the school levy tax credit, where does it come from?
The state
Okay,
applies it based on an algorithm from the public institution, what the school.
Department of Public Instruction?
Yep, yep.
so that isn't every year thing, basically?
It fluctuates.
Okay,
However, by doing what we did with our near cash financing, that gives us so much leverage now where we can go up and down to adjust that rate. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that later. So if you take that 0.72 times 168,000, which is, or 168 parts, which is the average household in the village here, you're gonna see the average homeowner will see better than $100 reduction in their taxes this year. So, at a prior meeting, I gave a lot of credit to the school district for them levying. It really had no bearing on the village. I'm gonna give credit to the TID closing out, net new construction, and
Well, they also raised theirs through a referendum of
Referendum.
$4 million,
Yeah.
so that's.
this wasn't on them, this was on the village, this is on the diligence of the village here. So this is just really good timing that we're able to offer this 72-cent reduction. So that's a levy. Any other questions on the levy tab? Okay. We'll get into the general fund. So we'll turn the page here. Revenues and expenditures are both increasing 4%. However, proposed fund balance is realizing the amount of $10,819 for the 2020 calendar year. In years past, my memory serves me correct, last year we used $10,000 of fund balance, year prior was $20,000, and the year before that was $50,000. So we are done stealing money from the fund balance and now starting to replenish that fund balance. Notable revenue increases, general property tax from net new construction, that yielded $67,000 of net new revenue to use for the village. The near cash loan financing of $100,000, which is going to help us establish our capital improvement plan. It also helped us eliminate annual debt service. It is a little skewed because in order to help restore Ally's budget, we ended up using the reserve, the library reserve. So essentially the way her funding is, we had to use her money or else she would continue to lose her state or her county funding. So we pulled it in as a revenue source this year, and then we're backing it out with expenditures as well. So it's a little skewed as to why it's up 4%. It's 25 grand, so it does skew the numbers quite a bit. Expenditures also 4%. Wage increases $37,074. Benefits were up $32,828. Associated with that is then retirement, $13,783. Those are the major driving categories. We can't get a handle on benefits. It was projected at as high as 14%. We shopped 5 or 6 different vendors, correct? We thought it would come down as low as 6.8% increase. It ended up coming back as 8.4 was our total increase in benefits. Kind of disheartening because it's across the board. I've heard anywhere between 6 to 12% in different municipalities. However, we are also doing a strong return to capital improvement budget, which has been pretty much null and void the last, how many years, Carl? A bunch. Major equipment purchases for the police department as well as public works, and a very strong capital improvement plan moving forward. Again, Chris is also in her budget. Her police budget is elevated because she also has a $12,000 set aside in her police fund, which makes her expenditures look ridiculously high. But that's something in 3 years we'll be able to purchase a squad with cash rather than rely upon fund balance. And then we also allocated an additional $6,000 to the fire budget this year for EMS, as they are going to try to compensate some of their first responders, which we want to be able to do that for keeping them in their positions. So,
Have you updated Hortonville?
yes, last night meeting, I was at the fire meeting last night, so Jane produced, based on our levy, the breakdown, the split between the fire budget between Hortonville and Hortonville, so, and they were going to share it with Bob. So, any questions on the general tab? Or maybe we can go into detail if you so choose.
Are we, we're not gonna get away from these increases on benefits. They're just gonna keep going up. Are we strong enough, are we large enough to do self-funding? I know I brought this up a year or two ago. Is it a possibility? Is it something we could look at?
I think we could take a definite hard look at it. Sheboygan did it. Obviously, they have 600 employees versus 22 full-time employees. You start battling how much money you put into it. All it takes is one significant illness. And
But you could back that up with insurance.
Yeah, you kapow it. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of times the strength is in numbers there.
I know that, I
So-
realize that.
However, we tried to get into the Wisconsin, we thought we'd have a good shake at the Wisconsin pool for the, what's the official name of it?
It's the
It's
state,
the state,
the state one through
Yeah.
WMC.
WMC, and we figured that'd be a shoo-in for us, getting into their labor pool, and it actually turned out to be the second or third highest expenditure. So there was really no rhyme or reason to why. Every year, we're gonna have to look at this. We've kicked around going to the private market. Keep in mind on insurance is not only are you paying a high deductible, you are doing a health savings account to help reduce our employees' deductibles. You're paying Delta, you're paying, what else am I missing there? I mean, there's a lot of parts that factor into health insurance here, so, I mean, and unfortunately, you get a couple employees that elevate it, and some aren't cheap. So the balancing act, you gotta play with 20 full-time employees. I think we have 47 dependents that we insure though, with 20 employees, correct?
I don't know that off the
Close
top
to
of my
that.
head.
So,
Is that something that if we looked at like self-funding, we could partner with another community? Or is that not an option?
that's kind of what we does. That's what
Yeah,
you're,
but, yeah, I'm talking statewide, but,
correct.
I mean, it's.
Self-funding, you'd have to look at, see if any others would be eligible or want to do that,
Yeah.
strengthen numbers. So it would take some research. I mean, I would have to put it out there.
Greenville, New London?
Yeah, that's us, because Greenville's growing and their
New
their
London.
staff is growing really quickly and,
And
they're gonna run into the same.
I had that conversation
issues.
with Joel. They're in the Wisconsin
Oh, they
Yes,
are?
they are.
So
So,
if they have better benefits, will we get them?
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It was just, it's actually disheartening. And unfortunately, you really can't blame the private companies because I think they know a fix is looming. It might take another presidential cycle, but they're gonna keep milking it as long as they can to get what they can before, it's healthcare
Faucet
for
turns
all.
off.
Yeah, exactly. So. But, I will be happy to entertain any questions if you had certain line items in the revenues or expenditures if you wanted to go into it. If you want to take some time to review. There's nothing, and I will, again, all of the department heads did their diligence. Again, we started this budget process not based on what you want, is on what you need. and everybody dialed it in, so I think it went back 2 or 3 times where we primarily trimmed the fat. I mean, this is a needs-based budgeting cycle rather than a want-based. And then what we did is upon the approval of the village board to do near cash financing, we did back some of the capital programs out of the general government, the general tax dollars, and put them into the capital, which allowed us to move money and funds around. So it shook out to be, it actually presented itself very well this year. We're gonna get a little discussion a little later in the process here, but there's good things, and we'll be able to discuss how we can grow that capital plan as well with that near cash financing.
One question under expenditures,
Yes.
public safety crossing guard. Chris, are we splitting some of that with the school district now for 2020?
Yet to be approved, so we took on the entire debt.
Okay,
That has to go to their school board. So what I did is I proposed, because we handed them that check from TID 2 for $38,000 and change, I met with Dave
move it.
Woodman and Todd Tim,
Okay,
so they're gonna propose it to their school board.
okay, we're budgeting worst case scenario.
So we would get a $6,000 stipend kickback on the crossing guard.
Yeah, because their fiscal year, I think, is like July 1st. isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard an update from Todd, but he said that, absolutely, he actually did the background research on it, he said, we're about the only school that's not co-opting the crossing guard program, so they're gonna make that a strong recommendation to their school board. So when that happens, I don't know, Julie,
Okay, but it just, yeah.
if we get a stipend coming back, it's positive to our budget then. The only other change that, and I really can't go there, and then we're proposing it for the December 19th meeting. There potentially be another revenue source with the fire department, because I'm proposing a accident scene collection for services. And I had a meeting with the fire department last night. It's a goal. Bob also looked at the ordinance language, so I'm gonna propose that on the 19th. So that'd be another stipend. That would be directly benefiting the fire department. We'd only take a 25% for administrative costs that we could collect for the village. So that would be something we could potentially get money back from. Other than that, if we grow, Julie, like you said, if we can grow the revenue source at the Opera House, that's a positive. And then we're always looking, obviously, anytime we can grab a revenue, we're gonna try to grab it.
All right, under, I believe this is expenditures, under culture and recreation, Wildwood Park materials, do we still have something going on yet with Wildwood Park?
Just the islands at the beginning of the,
That's what that is, okay, never mind.
and that, even that is, there's no official agreement, but we've been taking care of them, so we're continuing to. But where Dan lives, we've never taken care of them, and we're not going to. Sorry.
Neighbors get together.
I
and
just
take
thought we
care of
were
it.
done with that whole Wildwood Park, but that would make sense why you're still calling it Wildwood Park, okay.
Yeah.
There was some final restoration, Julie, also at the end of the Grandview project that we wanted to do that we didn't get to. So there might be some expenditures in spring to basically make them look
Not
good
a
again.
big, it was
They
just
Just
one
a
of
little bit
those.
of wood chips.
Mulching and floral and some plantings that would come back annually.
That's a good catch.
Well, it's $150. I mean, it's nothing, but I thought, when we're done with that.
Anything else, or we can talk about debt? You wanna talk? Can you have your spreadsheets ready for debt?
Yep.
Okay.
There are a few changes from your guys's, compared to ours. So, under transfer from TIF number 3, you will have 78,000. It should be 107,204.
This is under debt.
Under debt, other
Highlighted.
funding
Should
sources.
be highlighted, Julie. Is it highlighted in there?
No.
Oh, mine's
No,
highlighted,
so
I'm
what-
sorry.
Which one are we looking at?
Debt, first page of, page 1 of the debt tab.
Okay,
At the middle of the page, far right column, under 2020 proposed, 78 and 45,000.
yep. So the 7845 is wrong, so now
It
it's,
should be 78, or, the 45 is right. It should be 107,204 instead of the 78.
Oh,
Okay.
okay,
all right, got it.
the last column.
Correct.
So
So-
the total revenue would change then, obviously, from that. So, the total revenue is 967,441.
So essentially what
Go back
is,
up.
Yeah.
You go back up. Yeah.
there you go. So essentially what has happened is, something the village has never accounted for was, basically charging the TID. This is really the first goal of reimbursing the general fund from the TID expenditures. So that's why you're seeing these numbers coming in from a transfer from TID 3 and TID 4. So as money accrues into the TID, we're putting it back into the general fund. We're basically repaying the village for services that we paid for out of general fund.
The next number is different too, am I right, than our budget?
Correct. The 71,792, that was the 45,000 cap.
Okay.
Yep, that one and the one right above it that Nathan's got his cursor on. Those are the two changes right there.
Are the changes just on the same page?
Yes.
Then are we keep these after tonight?
You can.
Okay, can I just get a new page of that? Just a new page? This one? That's all? Yeah,
Good.
because I'm sure I messed up what you were.
I can just print it for everyone and throw it in their mailbox.
So essentially, I'll read from my debt tabs here, the discussion. We're transferring debt service from TID 3 and 4. I believe in the rear of your book, there's also payment plans that are set up for TID 3 and TID 4. So if you go to your back, you'll see what the village is due to make in TID 3 and TID 4 in the coming years. Now, TID 4 also has a separate one from Brookwood Drive. Way in the back, in your actual back flap here, guys. Way in the back page. Okay, so TID 3 has a repayment plan. TID 4 has 2 repayment plans. Anytime the village would now borrow money to TID 3 or TID 4, we would set up an additional payment plan that would be able to push this money back into the TID. That was one of the big tickets that we got doinked on last year from Kerber Rose in our audit, because we didn't have established repayment plans to our general fund. So kudos to these guys. We got it figured out. We figured out the debt. It's established now. And now moving forward, we're gonna have an annual number that we know. So this is established now. Anytime we do any borrowing from the general fund to pay something in a TID like we just did for vans, we add it to that tab, and now we know moving forward what annual contribution goes back to the general fund. So just a cleanup, just a cleanup procedure. But that way we know we have a moving piece that if we have to add more debt or take it from the general fund, we can then get it back. I can't fathom how many thousands of dollars the village might be out from just borrowing and robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, this way it's just a good cleanup. Other notables, final payments in 2020 for the 2017 squad loan and the 2017 paving loan will also allow the village to keep a stable rate of $8.57 per thousand, but potentially add another $61,000 to our short-term, our 2021 capital improvement short-term loan near cash financing option. So essentially what we're doing is every time we drop off a payment in debt, we can either add it to our capital program, or we can keep our capital program consistent and pay down more debt from a different tab. The options are endless. We also have notes on, you know, there's, the next column that I put is, we're gonna be dropping another $157,497 in 2021. Just taking those 2 years of payments alone would allow us to do a plethora of financing options that could either A, pay down the fire department prior to a balloon payment, or what I'm gonna do is let Nathan go nuts here. He put together his own capital program. He's got some spreadsheets. We have other funding options that would allow us to substantially grow our capital program, by essentially taking that fire department note, refinancing it, adding 4 years instead of 10. It would cost the village approximately $21,000 over the 4 years and the interest remaining, but it would build almost $1 million of capital that we could use for road and street repairs for that 4 years. So instead of paying down debt, we extend the debt for essentially 4 more years, and we can realize nearly $300,000 in capital improvements that would go directly into parks, infrastructures, and road repair. Now, this would all be prior to the bypass in 2026.
So this first one, it shows paying it off. So this would be paying off the 2014 fire loan and ends here and starts a balloon payment. We can either pay it off fully or we can refinance it. So paying it off fully, we would have to cut a certain amount every year for the next 3 years to add on to these payments. In the end, it would end up, basically what we have down here is this is the debt service budget line, so this is what total the village would end up paying for debt service. This is what we're paying this next year for debt service, and we're taxing. So I subtracted the debt budget line here from this one. So this is what we would have available for capital funds for 2021, or we could, by doing that, our totals across the different years, we estimated out to 2033, our total amounts. So anytime our debt service was dropped off, we would basically take that difference, and that would be available funds that we could do to our capital funds, or we could alter our mill rate.
So we maintain the debt service.
So instead, so
budget
basically,
every year. No
you
change.
maintain the levy.
You're maintaining, go back over here once, Nathan, go
Yep.
that way. So essentially what Nathan's saying is next year we have 120, this year we're gonna operate on 100,000, 122 up to 165, 168. At this point, your fire department will be paid for, and that's what you realize, once your fire department's paid for, you can then bump your capital program up to 353,000. There's a lot of bonds that we can't touch because if they're structured bonds, they're not callable. So it gets to the point where in the next 4 years, we can make a decision, and that's gonna be the village board. Do we wanna drive the debt down? Because you might as well show them the other funding tool.
Okay.
So this is by paying the debt down. So what we're doing is we're minimizing we're gonna keep our capital program kind of in check and not going crazy, versus if we extend it out 4 years.
So I just took a 4-year.
So
No.
essentially, at this point, we would have to refinance $229,000. So we just put it over 4 years. The interest is down below, which equates to about $21,000 in interest on that loan. But look what it does to your capital program. Next year, we need to go to 198, 241, 245, 287. So in those 4 years, you're almost putting $1 million of capital improvements into your streets, parks. So it's gonna be a decision we're gonna have to make.
Prior to 15.
Prior to the highway bypass, so.
We'll be sitting pretty, finally. We can do stuff in the parks, streets, buildings, board desk. We can get a decent board table.
Fix the
Board
chairs.
Yeah, chairs. We can do chairs. But I know we're gonna give you options, but I think me and Nathan would prefer if you guys refinance that. There's no reason to pay it off. It doesn't do us any good. to pay it off early.
It depends on your
absolutely.
capital
Yep.
improvements mostly.
Yeah.
And now keep in mind, these numbers are, while they're, what would you say your accuracy on? I mean, these are,
Well, I mean, the loan part, I would have no idea because that just depends on what the
interest rate.
interest
Yep,
rate.
Yep.
And what
So
I did is I
we're
think I did a
assuming-
3.75 interest rate per year.
Over that 4-year period?
Yes.
Correct. Granted, it just depends on what they wanna do with us. But numbers can fluctuate many different ways for some of these paybacks too. And
The
for
good thing
Miller.
about this near cash financing option is what it allows us to do is if we have a reassessment year like we're gonna have in 2021, so in 2021, they're gonna go reassess, so we can judge that, and we can, let's say they come back with a 5 percentile, we can fluctuate it, and we can lower our capital to offset the increase in the assessment. So it gives us a lot of leeway how we can move it up and down.
But-
And the end all be all is you don't want taxes to go up. If we're continually driving net new construction like we're doing this year, so now next year, our $67,000 that we realize in net new construction should be double. Because we've almost all but doubled our net new construction this year from last year.
If we refinance at the beginning of the year, we'll know exactly
Correct.
what the rate is and how much we can pump into
Capital.
capital.
That's an option, just do it early.
Yeah,
We had talked
right.
about that as well.
Yeah, do it the
So
first
every-
of the year.
Correct.
Make it a 6-year note or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be easier. But again, that's splash pads, that's pavilions. That's stuff the village has never been able to do.
No, I know.
And we can do that and more and keep taxes the same. Kind of wish I was hanging around to help spend all that.
Yeah, when's your retirement date?
1 year, 9 months,
Well, it's 6 years.
30 days.
If we're gonna take out a 6-year
Yeah.
loan, you've got 6 years.
I believe that
Big
takes
4
board
years.
approval.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's, all these years of trying to pick
I know.
up pennies and
Yeah.
now we actually have the tools to,
Okay.
Should be nice.
Good research, Nathan.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Nathan.
that's,
Can you share those two
so that's primarily the debt.
some of that debt includes utility and, I don't know if David, we'll talk about it at the next meeting, but
None of
we're
that
gonna look at
was-
lowering water rates next year a smidge and in 2 years lowering sewer rates a good bit.
Carl's gonna have a pretty, with our newly established capital program, he's gonna have a year that's gonna kinda take a year off from the utility paying for everything. That will allow him, he's got one note that'll hang out there for about 200 grand. Again, if we pay it down at the start of 2021, it would save the village 55,000 in interest. So it's at that point where if we make a move on it, we could pay it down in cash. And then we could do what I think was a 3.9% reduction, Carl, water, and a 4% reduction in sewer.
Yeah.
It's not substantial. It would equate to probably $50 a year, but it's a reduction.
It's something.
People
I think
will be
it's
happy about
any
it.
reduction
Yeah,
is gonna
will
be-
Yeah.
appreciated by
We can
everyone.
we can get water back in the $3 range and sewer back in the $13 range from 14. So it's significant. It's gonna be high until we get the wastewater plant in 2030 paid for. Then it'll drop like a rock, so. Yeah. So anyways, we'll talk about that at the next meeting.
So that's primarily the debt tab. All told, as in the tools that Carl has produced, and now with Nathan reproducing it with the refinancing options on that spreadsheet, in about 5 years, there's literally, you're under $4 million of total debt to the village. So and you're sitting in a really good spot, which would allow us to again, put money where it needs to be put pre-bypass. And then a little bit later, I'm gonna talk about another tool that will help us post-bypass, because we have another option that kind of came together this week. I wanna put it in your ear a little bit later in my administrator's report. But that's pretty much it for debt. I mean, we're sitting in good shape. If we clip over to the capital projects tabs, to be noted that with this approval of this board, this budget, we're purchasing new trucks for the public works as well as the police. That would be the police chief's squad truck, which is on a 6-year rotation that would get put to public works afterwards. Do you want to speak to it, Chris? I mean, it's pretty much the, what do you wanna say about your F-150 crew cab?
Just that after 5 years, it can be given to the DPW.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. We're getting it at the time that we order it. We've been talking with Carl to see different things that they need on that truck once they take over that truck, so.
One of the reasons we're buying one truck for Public Works now and one truck for PD is, right now I'm driving 98 and another 96 truck, 1996. So. This is a stopgap, the Chevy we're buying, the Dodge we're buying for Public Works. And her truck in 5 years, when it gets kicked down to Public Works, that'll be ideal. And then from that point on, well, from this point on, I think she's gonna buy a pickup truck, and then an SUV, and then a pickup truck. At least that's,
In the rotation.
yeah, because Public Works doesn't need that many trucks.
But right now, the Public Works vehicle that you guys go around and do your checks on, that's a 2008
Explorer.
Explorer.
Yeah, that's kind of junky. We're just gonna sell that, so.
Is that the one that got locked in the back?
Yeah. Childproof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
Anyhow,
Yeah, so, yeah, there
and
are-
this is all good. This capital we're gonna have in a few years, and David touched on that there's possibly gonna be a big chunk more money that's gonna go to capital the next few years. So we're sitting pretty.
And then last but not least is the TID tab.
One
we are-
second.
Okay.
There was one error at the bottom of page 1 of the capital projects revenues. It says transfer from general fund 100,000. It should be long-term note proceeds, not transfer from general fund.
That's the new loan.
That,
That's the 100,000 in your cash finance.
Oh, so it should be moved to the line below.
Yep. Correct.
It should actually say short-term note proceeds.
Yeah. Actually, it's not short term.
It's 1 year and 1 day.
1 year and 1 day, so it's technically long-term.
Long-term, right.
Yeah.
366
Peter's right.
days.
Short long.
And then the only note I had for the tabs, for the TIDs, TID 3 and 4 are finally showing a profit, which is allowing us to start the repayment plan to the general fund. TID 5 remains negative, but it's a downtown, it's actually TID 5 is a receiver TID. It will remain negative until we get some activity there. And unfortunately, that's set up for post bypass, so essentially they're taking admin fees out of it, so it's gonna push it down, but it's minimal at best right now. So.
you can always talk about that now. It's part of the TID portion anyway for next year.
What's that?
Your proposal
We could,
for TID 4.
yeah, I mean, we could, that's a separate handout. I'd rather have them approve the budget first.
Yeah.
So again, myself, I will open myself up, but I'm sure Carl and Nathan and
And there was-
or anybody else could help answer
Do
questions.
you want to show them the Helping Hands budget? Because that would,
It's on a separate tab too.
oh, okay.
It's okay.
So you need a motion. Is that correct?
Yes, we need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve R-23-19, the resolution to adopt the 2020 budget and approve the tax levy.
Second.
Are we doing the roll? Am I doing it? Dan?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We now move to CR-31-19, resolution amending pricing for nonprofits at the Opera House.
This was in your packet, so if you have that printout, essentially all we were looking to do was create another stipend for not-for-profits at the Opera House. The way Nathan, we reworked it's an amendment to R-13-19, which we did. It's not anymore?
That one wasn't passed. Remember that was,
Oh, that's right, my bad.
we passed the applications,
Okay.
permits.
So essentially, the new resolution calls for a minimum of $100 on a not-for-profit on a rental to the Opera House. It allows us to collect on the not-for-profits when they have bands, anything major that goes in there for an event, such as we had when the neighbor used
Humane
it.
Association.
Yeah, the He-Man, they had bands, they used toiletry, a little bit of cleanup, we had a couple hours of janitorial in there, so at worst, we weren't losing money, we're gonna at least retain money for power for band usage and toiletries and cleaning, so. It calls for $100 minimum for a not-for-profit for a rental at the Opera House.
There's no section here for weekend that we talked about.
Clarify that, 'cause
Yeah.
Just use the daily rental twice?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, the nonprofit for the weekend would be the same as what it is for the daily, is that what you're asking?
No, he's in 200.
No, it'd be
200
200.
200.
each day,
Each-
so no matter
100
what
each
day
day.
it is, it's by day.
Rent by the day.
But then what about, because really the weekend is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so does it book it for
Well,
Friday as well?
no, actually, the weekend goes Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday
Six
to
to
Sunday.
six.
It's a 48-hour period.
oh, so then here Friday, 6 PM,
To Sunday, 6 p.m.
I know, but I
To
mean.
Saturday to Sunday, it's
48
48
hours.
hours. That's
I
what we
get it.
talked about.
But so if a non-for-profit wants to rent it for the whole weekend, you'd have to specify that, so it would book, it would reserve that Opera House for basically Friday,
Yes,
Saturday,
if
and.
they want all day Friday, then they're gonna have to pay 3 days.
No, it's not.
Right?
Right.
No, but just wanna make sure that then we don't, like a non-for-profit, I don't wanna give them the impression that if it's by the day, that they can't get in there till Saturday morning, that they could get in there Friday night.
But it says Friday, 6 p.m. to Sunday, 6 p.m. That's what we
The
discussed.
permit shows it.
The
Right.
permit shows it. I
Okay.
just wanna make sure non-for-profits know, cause you're not, I mean, there's other non-for-profits, you know.
Yeah. Okay, the only other issue is if you go by day, then the deposit becomes 400.
No, the deposit carries.
Oh, it does, okay. And that will be specified?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough.
As is with like weddings or anything else. The deposits carry over as long as the first day, I mean,
Got it. I'll make a motion to approve R-31-19, resolution amending the pricing system for the Upper House and the community center rentals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. D is R-32-19, resolution approving personnel manual changes for 2020.
This will have to table, huh?
No, actually, we are going to approve the personnel manual and possibly amend it.
amend it later.
Yes.
Okay.
So in your packet, you would have gotten copied on, you would have gotten those proposed personnel manual changes. And what it is, it's primarily verbiage. I gave it to you by the page number. So if there's any questions to that. Now, that does affect some of our executive committee. Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't make hard copies of this, and I don't even have one myself, so. But if you have that copy in front of you, I have the actual book in front of me, the proposed final copy of the personnel manual. Again, this is stuff that I sent off to Ally and Jane and Carl and Chris. So to have them look, and any comments I got back, this is what the entire year's sticky notes in the personnel manual came down to that we had to look at and change. So again, most of it's verbiage, nothing real administrative here.
There's one question. I thought we dropped EAP.
We have a at-will usage, so
Okay.
we do not pay a stipend. We pay for it if an employee wants to go and use it. We pay for what their services are rendered.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it in the book then.
Correct.
Okay.
And then what we did is, we still have notification, so it's a hush-hush, you know, they're really hard on rules and regulations. So we have it posted in the break room. If you want to use it, use it. We just get billed for what they use. It can be a series of 1 meeting, 3 meetings, 6 meetings. It's an hourly figure that they create rather than paying a $1,200 a year stipend that had zero utilization for three consecutive years. So we just opted to do it that way.
Is that on the list here, Jeannie, or are you looking at actual paper copy of the personnel manual?
I have a copy of the
Okay.
personnel manual.
Okay, I'm looking for it here, I couldn't figure out. So nothing's changed.
Yeah, so
Okay.
then it just stays in
Yep,
there.
and essentially what I'm gonna do tomorrow, I'm gonna get electronic copies to all department heads upon approval. So then this would be, effective date would be, today,
Okay.
so.
I do have a question on the first one, and maybe looking at the full book would help me, but Authorization to hire, page 6. So is that giving you authorization to hire, like, anybody, or are we
No.
still doing department? I guess help me out here.
Page 6, authorization to hire would be, it says, the administrator is to present findings to the executive committee or village board as a whole.
Okay,
We added that because,
yeah, maybe, yeah. that
let me
would be
read it
helpful.
to you, Julie. It says, supervisors who wish to fill a vacancy in existing positions shall submit a written request to the administrator. After a thorough review of the proposal, including a needs analysis, economics, and potential time study, the administrator is to present findings to the executive committee or the village board as a whole.
Okay,
That was a step we added after the PD.
okay. That doesn't change anything in the library board, right?
That,
Library hiring?
Separate.
No,
That's
That's
separate.
totally
Separate
separate. I
anyways.
just wanna make
Yep.
sure.
yeah,
Okay,
library board does that.
okay.
And state law trumps.
Yeah,
too,
chapter
so-
43, I mean,
Or-
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We essentially added that as a step, kind of like, I guess, the power line of chain of command. And then I also added that, what I sent to you, I also added it to the book to help clarify, because there was questions on that as well with the PD issue that came through. So,
Once this is all approved, can we get an electronic copy of that personnel?
tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you, that would be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yep. I have it all changed. I was prepared to make any changes again tomorrow.
Are there any other questions?
Department
None.
heads, anybody, do you guys have any concerns or questions? Chris, Carl, Al, Jay, no?
Oh, no.
Nothing that you guys, okay, I just want,
No, it's just common sense changes.
okay. I'll make a motion to approve R-32-19, resolution approving personnel manual changes for 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. E, discussion, motion to approve Helping Hands of Hortonville.
We have a paper copy.
Yep.
This is paper.
That's not bad, is it?
It'll be a quarter.
Just-
Actually, we don't have a paper copy. This is also in your packet.
It's in the back of
It was in the back of the budget.
Oh, that's where.
That is the budget scenario, but we did put both of it in there. What we attached in your packet is also the budgetary as well as the contract. So this process started almost a year ago. We thought it would help with senior services to increase transportation in the village. The driving factor, we tried to get more people to the meal site. As it turns out, the meal site it's in need of more than just transportation, it just needs help altogether. However, this program is something that, as a chamber affiliate for 20 years in my hometown, we started something like this about 15 years ago. It was a gracious donation to the city of Kiel. That program has since grown from a volunteer service to now having a volunteer dispatcher, went from 1 car to now 4 cars. And it's a vital piece of senior service to the community. What I did is I solicited funds from the ADRC of Outagamie County, and we had the intentions of getting one unit, 1 vehicle, or funds for 1 vehicle, and then an operating budget. That turned into a gracious donation of not only 1 vehicle, but 2 vehicles and potentially a $17,300 annual stipend. So all told, if this is approved and given the go-ahead, this grant totals value is $104,275. I could pass it around. What they are graciously ordered, ready to be delivered, is 2 brand-new 2020 Dodge Caravans, Brown Mobility, everything motorized, powered vehicles that we would have at our disposal to use our volunteer services to pick up people in and out of Hortonville and any of the townships. The way we would structure our program is that if you have a Hortonville address, so essentially if you live in any of the surrounding townships, we have a fee structure that would pick you up on site and take you to your destination for a suggested fee. If you can't pay that suggested fee, you can give a donation. If you can't give anything, so be it. The reason we say that is because we have if you look at your budget, we are guaranteed to receive $17,301 from the county this year. We have fuel, we have maintenance, we have tires, we have marketing, insurance, small volunteer stipends. We have administration for our staff in the admin building. We have a storage fee in there, audit fee. We also, we pretty much included anything that we can think of moving forward to cover it. The way the program works, and the reason on the bottom, you can, or on the top, I'm sorry, miscellaneous income is a $5,000. We would need a village stipend to get started. This is a reimbursement program. So we'd have to annually, we'd have to keep audit, keep numbers, track it, and then quarterly solicit our bill, send our bill to the county for reimbursement. It's a guaranteed reimbursement. They just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing with the vehicle. This is another copy of the logo. Obviously, the high schoolers developed this. It meshes with our village logo, so it's kind of a neat handshake. I'm working currently with, and I'm gonna meet with the Legion on Monday. They have a handful of drivers. I've had a few people from the library express interest. 3 other people that have solicited from back in the day when we did other village events, people that have signed up. So right now I'm comfortable saying we've got about 5 volunteers in line. And I think what happens as this program grows, people will get on board. They'll see the need and the want. And what I've been telling people, I told Bob Ziegert today that the intent of this program is to get people to the service they need, and then the funds that would come in would be utilized for our senior services. It would stay right with our senior community. That's the intent. Nothing, we would be able to offset our finances, put some money aside if we have to replace a vehicle that we don't get a county funding, but also grow it, and hopefully be able to do bigger and better things for the senior community. So that's the initial. The contract does have some stipulations. It's generally made for people 60 years and older, or if they have a disability. These, like I said, these vans are the top of the line. They are not made to be a deterrent to drivers. Everything is automated, including the wheelchair ramps on them. So again, graciously enough, I asked, they granted, was a $4,500 option for that wheelchair lift. These people would literally be able to hit a button, roll a chair in, strap themselves in, and move down the road. It's going to be a lot of work on us to get it up and running. We had that initial meeting, Jane, myself, and Nathan. They're going to be gracious enough to let it take its course. You know, they have restrictions to say 2 hours a week. They want the vans operating. They know this is an infant, a brand new process. Essentially what she told us is it's easier for the county to give funds than to try to run these out of their dispatch and run them all over the county. They want to establish these in every little corner of the community and hope that they take off. So it's a service that they can kind of put off and yet let the villages and towns reap a little bit of reward. So
Do they provide any sort of marketing plan or
That's on us.
guidance on
that's
any
on
of
us.
that?
I've already started.
You
So
know, obviously
I've
they
had
have the-
I've had meetings with Home Instead Senior Care Partners, or Home Instead Senior Services, Care Partners, Living Tree Estates, and Kindred Hearts in Greenville. All of them are options that we could be producing ride shares for. Almost all of them contract with Metro Services out of New London. And having that local connection here, right up top of the hill, they do 5 a week, 5 transports a week.
What about
So-
Pinewood? Would
Yeah,
the
Pinewood
body-
Estates
body
would be another
another
Absolutely,
one.
Because that's
yep.
a
Also
county
been in
funded-
conversation, yep.
Yeah.
There's unlimited.
Who does the dispatch?
It's gonna run through the village hall. That's how we're gonna start it initially. Believe it or not, City of Kiel, 15 years into it, they still use a paper voucher, paper pen, they use a book. I have solicited and I have all of their materials. We have, so what they do, Julie, is you book it just like you would go to the meal site. You book your meeting, and then you put it in a logbook. A lot of the people that are there do it, they hand it off, so when they go to their meeting, they book it for the next month. A lot of them are monthly meetings that these people need rides to. So it's just like going to the dentist. They give you a card, they already reserve it for that day and time. The City of Kiel actually uses a paper logbook yet. Every week they get their driver's assignments, they hand it off. These aren't like 15 minutes ahead of time they need a ride. These are all set way in advance. And they have people that are structured to work certain days. And then if there's no rides that day, they don't come in. The vans don't come out. So we have, technically, right now, we're gonna store them in the Blackwater Lake
I was just
District
gonna
building,
ask.
thank you.
That's what I was
That
thinking
was
too.
my next
So-
question.
Because their harvester is in for repair all winter, so we got coverage all winter. Use their side of the building, in the newly formed building. It's gonna be a lot on administration, but we have costs built in. With the approval of this program, I would like to give a stipend to Libby and Nathan to bump their payroll. Again, we have an amendment that we built into the budget. If it's approved, we can amend their pay, so we can directly pay them, but yet charge the account to here. Because if we don't charge it, we don't get reimbursed for it. So we might as well take a stipend out of it. They're gonna be the ones doing the primary work on it. They reserve it. Essentially, the drivers fill out the form. It does mileage and it does time. And then they bring their cash flow in on a daily basis, and then it becomes a recording. Any of those funds we put into a fund that we, like I said, would be in for our senior services funds. If we could start funding trips or bus trips for some of our senior activities, things like that. So you'd have a budget, Pat, instead of asking for it. City of Kiel does $66,000. I mean, it's 15 years into the program. This year they did 66,000 and
I assume cash only type situation.
yes, yeah. I did ask Care Partners, because I said, how do you do that? They're an all-inclusive, so their beds are up there, they don't pay any more. We would have to make a bill for them. And they pay 100% of the suggested fares. They don't ask, they just pay it. Same thing with Kindred Heart and Living Tree Estates. All of these people are more than gracious, or they're looking for opportunities, especially the Home Instead Senior Services. That's becoming one of their biggest needs that they have, so. We've done our diligence, we've checked on insurance coverage, we've checked on workman's comp, we've checked with the liability, we're all covered. What I quoted for our budget here is it's well within that. 8521 trust fund, in case we have a severe accident that would need major repair or deductible. They have a trust fund that we could pull from, so we have coverage in that case. All of the drivers would technically be employees of the village. That keeps them under our liability umbrella. We don't have any minimal pay requirements to them. They would know that going in. The city of Kiel compensates $100 a year.
When the vehicle.
Wait a minute, hold it. I thought these were all volunteer drivers.
They are,
If they're volunteer and they're not employees, you don't need workers' comp.
but in order for them to be insured and under our liability, we have to. It's volunteer status, but you have to compensate them.
No, you don't. If you're a volunteer driver, just like volunteer drivers are for DAV, they're not covered under workers' comp. They're covered under general liability,
Okay,
but not workers' comp,
Okay.
because they're not being paid a wage.
we'd have to work out that.
Okay.
Okay. Essentially, they give them a stipend. They don't pay them a lot of
Well-
money. It's a stipend. Majority of it comes back in donations. They give it right back.
Okay.
So,
That was my only question. I have my 7 o'clock medication
okay.
every 12 hours for the next year, with a little time off for good behavior. So if I can be excused, may I, Madam? Thank you.
Any other?
Does the vehicle, what's the lifespan of the vehicles and how often do they get?
Basically, it is ours for $1 lease, which we don't have to pay, and they said it's the useful life of the vehicle. If you feel it's not worth utilizing anymore, you can either ask for a new one, or we would have to replace it at our own cost. So,
Is there a plan for storage after next year?
a very,
Yeah.
Thanks to the capital plan, yeah.
yes.
Because the harvester will return.
Yes, yes. No, we're working on that with the capital plan, so.
My concern is knowing how hard it is to find volunteers. It's gonna take a lot of time. And the people, it's not gonna be electronic, it's gonna be phone with a lot of the
Yeah,
people.
yep,
You know,
yep,
we're
yep.
finding with our seniors that, you know, what's the best way to communicate with them and, you know, because not everybody does emails. I think that's something to keep in
Absolutely.
mind, that in most of the Legion, volunteers are older themselves too.
I met
so-
with Bob today. He had that concern also.
Mhm.
Yeah. The one thing that we will say is if you have a medical transport, and the city of Kiel does the same thing, they don't want to be picking up and transporting medical needs people. They require a person to accompany that person if they have a medical transport. So a lot of times they rely upon a family member to go along with them. And sometimes it's not that they can't get them there, or the people can't go with them, they just can't get them in their vehicle. So I think we do the same thing. We would require, and that's all the verbiage that the city of Kiel has, and I have it already in my computer. It would just be a matter of generating those forms, a marketing tool, the brochures we're gonna end up putting out, a lot of grassroots marketing after the first year, churches, you know, putting it out on word out, but it really starts with the solicitation for the volunteers to get in those locked down first. We're pinpointing March as really like a launch where we're gonna start accepting rides, because it might take 2 months to get it up and rolling, so.
And I know I can extend myself to help with that too, in any way, you know, because I did the volunteer stuff before. But it'd be great to bounce it off of the senior activities committee too, as we move along.
Absolutely.
Like if
Help
we
them
could see that,
utilize that.
right, and the committee and get input. So, if we go ahead with it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, they're ready to be picked up. I just said I have to have official board approval and propose it to them and answer any questions that they may have.
Are we locked in first, like, let's say we realize after the first year, it's just not.
Fans go back, they're not ours.
They're not ours, okay.
If it's not generating, we give them back. There's
If
useful
it's-
life. I mean, people will be able to utilize these vans. Worst case, they sell them, Julie. These are $44,000 vans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's,
I guess that's something to think about too, if it's not generating, you mean as a revenue source,
yep.
or if we're providing a service?
both.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a minimum
Because I
that
would-
we're supposed to
I would like
provide,
to-
right? I mean, it's
2
ridiculous,
hours a
but-
week.
because I would like to see it as, you know, a
Yep.
service too, even if
Absolutely.
it doesn't bring in.
Absolutely. That was the biggest key that the unknown was, is this an annual contribution by the county? And having found that out, that took a lot of the burden off. Knowing that we potentially could get paid for fuel, maintenance, upkeep, everything, and still get an annual stipend, everything we make is positive cash flow. You know, I do want to have a set-aside fund, you know, we always want to have a backup, but I want to also be able to help offset some of the costs and fund some of the activities for the seniors association as well.
Are there any more questions? If not, we will need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Helping Hands of Hortonville budget for, we're specifically just approving the budget.
Yeah.
For-
just- yep.
Budget for 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. F, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
I've got one. We want to schedule a public works committee meeting, sometime after the first of the year, in January. The primary topic's gonna be capital plan, capital improvement program items, but I'm also gonna advise that, you know, public safety, think about capital, because we're gonna be looking hard at expanding our capital improvement plan, since we're gonna be able to complete some stuff in the future. We're gonna want, you know, all the departments, you know, library. It's not just public works that gets all the money. So, if there's gonna be money available, library, police department, whether there's something village boards just wanna see the village do somewhere. So we're gonna start with public works. Most of the high dollar items are in public works, but there's certainly room for anything, police, board, in the parks, or anywhere else you can think about it. You know, whether it's flooring in here, you know, this stuff's kind of junk.
It's good yet.
Yeah. Anyways, be aware of that. It's not just public works that's driving this capital program, it's everybody.
I have one also. Julie, do you want to give an update on your little pantry?
Oh, we have finally found an appropriate cabinet that fits the bill of the look of how it should look. The next step is to convene with a group of volunteers to determine how we're gonna keep it stocked and when to bring it here.
Okay.
And how we're gonna make sure the word gets out that it's here. But now it's just a matter of deciding how to keep it stocked, because I know we don't have a lot of extra storage space, so.
I think Ally could, do you wanna mention, or do you wanna mention that later in your report? That's a starter amount, right, of donations?
3 cans.
Oh. 3 cans.
There you can make goulash.
Well, the kicker was,
She's got started.
she's got to start, and I heard, and thank you. The kicker was to find an appropriate cabinet that fit with the admin building here too, but it was sturdy enough and also could be something that is aesthetically pleasing. So my husband did several shelves and some cubbies over the past weekend, and now it's just a matter of convening and determining how we're going to keep it stocked.
I think it looks nice.
Yeah.
It looks really nice, yeah. He's a Restore junkie, so thankfully he walked over to the Restore and saw it. It's pretty cool.
So you'd like that on the next agenda?
I don't even know if
I
it's a
think we
board
approved it,
agenda.
right? We approved that already.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all approved. I think it's just now a matter of, hey, I may be barking on your tree for volunteers and possibly food donations
Well,
at some point.
with it being almost Christmas, it would be a really good time to put out like
Yeah.
Would be.
from the local businesses and taverns and stuff, to put out a collection.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah, that would be,
And I think we're not gonna have a problem initially stocking.
yeah.
It's
figure it
just
out. We got
keeping it
public
stocked and
at the
also
offices.
babysitting it a little, because I can stop by 2 to 3 days a week, but it would be nice if it was checked daily, just to make sure that nothing's broken open and, you know,
Yeah.
because it's, again, it's not the village's responsibility, but, you know, it volunteers. So we have a pretty nice group of folks that are interested, and we just need to convene.
I was just thinking you could get a really nice stockpile with the Christmas giving spirit.
I think it would be great. I think it'd be great. So,
Just
yeah,
have to find someplace to put it.
temporarily I could store some, but I don't think that would
In the
last for
shed?
the long term, so.
Why don't you, send out an email when you get this up and going, if it's in a week or 2 weeks, just, you know,
Yeah.
let all of us know. I'm sure we'd all like to help out.
Yeah, yep, thank you. And I sent the picture to Carl and to David just to make sure too with the height, because the height's just at the absolute.
6 inches we got, yeah. We're
Do
good.
we have 6 inches?
Yep.
Okay, I thought we were, okay. So yeah, it's moving along.
One of the things I would suggest with that, like, is to, I know like the Cub Scouts already do like a scouting for food. They do that once a year, but they still, the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts are always looking for community-based drives, stuff that they can help with, so. they
Yeah, I'm
can
hoping
probably-
we can get some student groups, because I think that's a
Yeah.
neat way for kids. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jim. We're just didn't want to start collecting food until we had an actual
Yeah.
place to put it. And what we have is beautiful, and I'm
Yeah.
hopeful by within the next couple weeks, it should be out here, so.
The Cub Scouts are doing a food donation next Thursday, I think,
Okay.
already. They were planning on taking it to the pantry.
And that's where it should go, that's where they were planning on going. And that's the other part of this is, and not to discuss it too much, but, is contacting the pantry as well to make sure that they know that this is just a temporary, they're the long term, and I wanna get some brochures. I also wanna get Outagamie County 211 to put with that cabinet, so that long-term needs are being met as well, not just short-term.
You might want to write this down. Displays to go. They have the plastic receptacles for your pamphlets, if you wanted to attach some of those to the side of that cabinet.
Okay, I will look that up. Yeah, I just don't wanna put an empty cabinet sitting there. I want it, when we put it out, Always it's looks full and
Yep.
it's ready to
Yep.
roll. We have a Facebook page set up, it's just,
They're the plastic receptacles that have the
Yeah.
flapper on them for informational
Yep.
kiosks, so displays
Yep.
to go.
I will look it up. Thank you.
The only other one that I had, Jeannie, on that was, upon approval of, the executive committee with the reduction to the municipal court, we were gonna have a thoroughfare to help with between myself and the judge. So that was a committee that we had talked about. Is there any further discussion we wanna do on that? For potentially, trying to regrow the court and ease the tension, and so I don't know if there's anything we need to do with that.
No, and I agree. We talked about creating that, and I don't know if that needs to be discussed here, but
Okay.
if need be, I would be willing to be on that.
Okay, I don't know what committee it would fall under. That's kind of where I was looking for the direction on
Yeah.
it.
That's I think an ad hoc
Yeah,
opportunity.
that's what I was thinking too. That's
Alright.
one that could be made up possibly.
Mhm.
And put me down as a volunteer if you're looking for someone, so.
That's all I had.
10 is report of village officials. A, administrator.
Another handout, sorry guys. Sure. Is it sure? Yeah. See if I got enough. There we go, I will, this Peter's on here.
Why do I feel like I got something from you that had a whole bunch of your administrative reports? Did we get something?
I did, I sent off the MLS proposal.
That one, but did you send off?
Thank you.
You bet.
I don't know. You missed me.
My mom's one of those. Is she? Oh, man.
Come back.
I thought maybe you already had it.
David,
Yes,
could I have one too?
sorry, who's
You can
getting?
have one of mine.
Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, I'm like, but for some reason I kept thinking I had something and then.
It was the
I wasn't
MLS.
saying I actually did, I just couldn't find it.
And that's the first bullet point down here is the MLS grant. So essentially, probably a month and a half back, we solicited for $10,000 in order to write that grant. That was prepared by MSA. So that went out this week. What I sent you was what I felt was, because it was a 66-page long grant, the submission was, and what they did is they put our comprehensive plan, county comprehensive plan, and they attached all of that to show the relevance of what we're trying to do. What I sent to you today, the village board, and I mean, Carl, I copied you on that, were the highlighted pages, the actual one. We were only given one page of verbiage, and then you could attach maps. So essentially, they changed the flavor of the grant in the process. So what we ended up finding is that a lot of the things that we were trying to go after weren't eligible. So we positioned it towards the park and rec side of it with the continuation of the trailhead that Greenville is getting built with the bypass. We would be continuing it from Greendale Road on the east end of town all the way through to Miller Park, and it would show all of the amenities that we potentially are planning for the village. And the email that I put out to you today is we listed all the amenities. Now we threw them in there in parks that we thought would be great. They're not static. That's gonna take a lot of planning, and we got a lot of years to do all that. But we wanted to show that grant people that, hey, look, we're trying to do all these amenities, and what better way to connect them is with that trailhead. That trailhead totaled up to be $2.3 million worth of infrastructure. And a lot of it was boardwalk and raised elevated pathways through Alonzo, through Miller Park, and to really go along with the creek that we have going through town here. So that was submitted this week. Myself, Jeannie, and Jane also did the final signatures for the $100,000 loan. That's complete. I'd like to come back to TID 4 in the economic development update, so that's also what's attached to this packet. As far as community development, Pat had a big hand in it. The senior activity board hosted the holiday luncheon this past week. Not only did we have a ukulele band, we had a nice showing of 49 people at the Opera House. Moving on, all department heads will be conducting the end of the year job reviews with their employees before the end of the month. They were given their employees statements of employment, which does list their approved 2020 budget, approved 2020 wage. And then they end up writing their goals and handing them off to their department heads so we can monitor them at the 6 and 9 month. Again, we did our personnel manual update for this meeting. Fire department meeting last night. We're working on the fee structure approval, which will be the 12-19 meeting. And then today, the village hosted the Fox West Chamber here today for 35 people. So, if you turn the page, the TID 4 proposal, some good news, and it's not an official motion that we're going to do, but I'm going to ask for some direction here. So, I wanted to give an update on TID 4 because a lot of things are happening. As you can see from the Vans construction, we were able to sell 2 lots just this past week, with 4 more lots being developed in the next year. What you have to take for granted on these numbers these are assumptions. These are assumed numbers that we are given. So what I try to do is calculate a ROI, return on investment, that TID 4 would generate. And as you go through the numbers, the Vans Construction Homes, by selling that lot and investing $47,500 of village money in 15 years, so to run out the full assessment of the TID, it'll create just short of $300,000 increment for the TID 4 project. TID 4 is a donor TID, so if we have no amendments to TID 4, that $300,000 would then be able to be used in the downtown TID 5 restoration. The Cottages on Main project, in the past was kind of, I guess we didn't know exactly how it was structured. It was better than assumed. I assumed it, and I think a lot of other people assumed that they are gonna get 90% of the benefit of that village, of that TID exposure over the years, and that's not true. So our total out of pocket will be $364,582, of which $22,940.17 has been paid, with a substantial development payment this year. It's estimated that $18,229 will be paid in 2020 of their taxes. That's what we would have to pay them back for their tax reimbursement, which would leave a balance of $323,413. If you go through the assessment calculations here, and assume full assessment would equate to $93,000 a year. That being told, we have to give them 90% of that back until that $364,000 has been paid off. That return on investment is 4.14 years. And all told, we'd see 11 years of total service, of full assessment to this project, which over the course of the TID will create $1,025,178. That also is money that can be donated to TID 5, which is downtown, for the restoration. The primary reason of why I'm proposing this, or why I'm showing you this today, is what you see is the proposed 2020 SD Swiderski development. This is something I've been working on for probably 6 months. The maps, before we get into the financials, if you turn the pages here, I've included maps. So what you're looking at is essentially on the parcel map is 24304, and then the two properties to the right of that would be all the properties that surround the Catholic Cemetery on Main and Gibbons Road. Those three parcels together, all told, are just over 12 acres. Having a need for residential homes in the village, whether it be new construction or market rate development. I reached out to SD Swiderski because they are one of the bigger companies in the state of Wisconsin pushing market rate driven residential apartment complexes. So they came back with their proposal, which if you go to the next page then, is to develop an 80 unit, I'm not going to call it luxury, but it's an 80 unit market rate apartment style living for the village of Hortonville. There are 4 buildings, each of them has 20 units. The ones closest to Gibbon Road have attached garages. That'd be your next page, which has a depiction of the village, the homes that are being built on there, or proposed to be built on there. And then the ones that you can going further to the west, that would be just below the retention pond, would be on the 4th page. Those are 2-story, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And then you can't tell by the map, and you can hardly read it, but they do have detached garages for all of them. So you'd be able to accommodate all these apartment buildings with garages and or parking spaces. Nathan rented, where did you rent from these people?
In Clover, I paid around $1,000 a month or so. They do a credit and finance check, and I had to show savings account to show that I had enough to pay for a full year in order to get in. They're well-maintained properties by, I mean, they have their own staff for landscaping and maintenance, and they have on-site managers that get paid there. And
all told, so going back and forth, we've had contacts with the landowners there. I put out a suggested influx of capital from the village. They've accepted it. We're at the point right now where I'm not asking for formal approval. I'm asking for a head shake to move forward with this, because I want to go through the economics of it and tell you what this would realize. The village would essentially need to do a $500,000 investment. It's a $500,000 investment. It's a revenue bond. So what I did is I projected a 4% interest revenue bond at 5 years, which equates to $552,495. That would be what the village would put in for their investment on this project. This is a revenue bond and it's secured by the increment, so that has absolutely zero tax implications on the residents, none. That's the biggest thing we need to put out there, that this will not affect the tax rate. The proposed 80-unit development is an $8.8 million estimate, assuming full assessment, and I'd use a 70% calculation on it. This project would assume $136,000 of increment annually. So we would first see the first full assessment in 2022. The village would have to cover the initial bond payment of the first year, which is $110,000, which we have more than enough to take out of fund balance. With what we essentially I'd ask is that we take it directly out of the savings that we were getting back now from our last two projects of Grandview and Brookwood. We've gotten approximately $175,000 of our outlay back already. So what we're just going to start revolving that money. They would cover the initial bond payment of 2021, and then through the years 2022 through 2026, there would be enough money generated from this development that it would be paid down by the year 2025. 26 would be the first year we'd see a full assessment. All told, 12 years of full assessment on this would create an additional $1.64 million that we can use in TID 5 for the downtown revitalization. Where I'm going with this is, with the van construction, the cottages on Main, and this proposal, all told, would have paid themselves back post-bypass when we need the money the most to help revitalize our downtown. That bottom is a summarization of what we're looking at. Potentially, we are sitting on, if we are able to do this deal, they want this deal. It's just a matter of, do we want to go get it? TID 4 could potentially see, by the end of its useful life in 2037, could donate $2.965 million to the downtown restoration. What that allows the village to do is, in 2026, knowing that assessment number, we could go out for bonds, again, not at any tax burden to the villagers, to the tune of $2.965 million to have that money for our downtown revitalization. This would also close TID 4 without an amendment, and it's a strong move that would, with our capital program, would pretty much put us right on top for what I would call the best living conditions in the Fox West. So I'm not asking for your formal approval, I'm asking for the head shake. This is Dave. Put together a marketing plan with SC Sudersky and allow the village to do this. So if there's any questions, I'd entertain those.
I'm wondering so the cottages was originally branded as something similar to this.
Correct.
So do we have any sort of information as to, is there a need for this? I mean, Hortonville has a lot of apartments in it already. Is there a need for this? Is there any guarantee that we're not gonna end up with, oh yeah, well, we can't rent this, so we're gonna go to Section 8, except for Section 8 housing. I mean, we're gonna go to the state and get it filled up.
Typically, I tried renting here, couldn't find an apartment.
I
I'm just
understand that.
saying, that there's a lot, and I understand what you're.
Yeah, and the cottages was supposed to,
The
the
cottages
cottages
have
was
always
originally-
done this. That was the cottages. If you looked at their business plan, that's
Yeah.
what they always are. But SC Sudersky doesn't have that. They don't have a single Section 8 on their portfolio. They maintain they'll do a presentation for you guys.
Yes.
okay.
And they'll sit there and they'll tell you that this is an investment for them. They don't leave they don't sell their properties to someone to take care of. They hire staff and have them take care of themselves, because that's their investment. So they keep it well maintained.
Put it this way, Jim, we initially started on the 6 acre parcel, which only encompassed the 2 properties adjacent to Gibbons Road. They said no. They wanted more than 50 units because they didn't feel it was worth their investment to build here and staff a person on site.
Okay.
Their rates are $650 to $1,050, whether it be a 1-bedroom up to a 2-bedroom. And then it's a little higher if you got an attached garage versus a detached. They include all the amenities except for electrical. So all your water, cable, and gas are included in that rent, and they just make an additional stipend for electrical. So it's actually a nice package for they say they feel it's more rentable that way.
Okay.
There are people that live in the Greenville area that are interested in moving to the Hortonville area,
Absolutely.
if they can't find a place.
Yeah, you can't afford to live
Yeah.
in Greenville
Yeah.
either, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
True.
The other thing we gotta think of and take advantage of is there's a lot of people that have come into Village Hall in the 55 and plus category that are looking to get out of their house, which might allow younger people to start taking over older homes and get younger people into homes in the village as well.
Well, I just wanna, you know, we gotta, the entire village has a sour taste in its mouth from the cottages.
Yes.
So, not only would the members of the board probably need some assurances and convincing, but the members of the community would probably
Absolutely.
need some assurances and,
Presentation.
presentation,
Yeah.
this is what it's gonna look like, let's not look at a.
Actual
let's-
images,
yeah,
not real
yeah.
pictures.
Because
not-
even the
So-
cottages doesn't
no.
look anything like what, I mean, I live right next to them. It looks nothing like what it was presented to be.
So what I'm asking for is, I think we should I'm looking for the approval to entertain this, which then I would give them the permission to go ahead and produce that program where they could come in front of the village board to give their presentation, assure you that what we're doing, and come up with what I would feel would be a strong developers agreement with the village.
Okay.
I just had to come up with that level of investment, and essentially the land prices over there are at $585 for the all 12 acres. I told them I'd like to stay in the $450,000 to $500,000 range, and I based that on the increment versus what the cottages was and the land over there compared to the 80 units versus the 40 units, and what the contribution was, level was at the cottages was $364,000. So I went up to that $500,000 plateau. He then took it to his ownership group, went up the ladder and said if you would contribute that $500,000, they would take on the additional $85,000. And that's even before any negotiations with the landowners. So they were assuming full price for land, and then they would taper it back. I just said I will start at that $500,000.
Okay.
Looks like it's a
And,
decent setback from that house that's back there too, so they won't
Correct.
be right
Correct.
yeah,
up against them.
And they're putting their pond on that side.
Yeah, so
you know,
at least
so-
they'll be,
How much is in wetlands back there? Are they gonna have trouble?
It's all to the east of it.
Okay.
Because you go over it, there actually looks like there was a hill that was bermed, that they pushed a berm back there. All of the area that would drop back behind the cemetery is not even on that plan.
that's
Yeah.
right here.
It's all to the east of that.
okay, and are we also, in our costs, I mean, I know we're looking at like taxes and stuff like that. Are we also projecting in, you know, costs for police and school and anything else that we're gonna have to add in? And as well, and on the other side, the reduction in potentially reduction in our water bill because you're adding users. I mean, so
Yeah.
there's
I
a
think
flush
1.6
somewhere.
million to go a long ways.
What's that?
1.6 million and positive return will go a long ways.
Okay.
And the school district is
And-
anticipating growth,
Correct.
right?
Concentrated users, Commonwealth is probably generating about 30,000 for the utility. This place may double that, so every little bit helps.
Well, I'm just addressing that right up front because,
Absolutely.
I foresee, you know, people in the seats out here, as soon as, if this becomes public, saying, well, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about that, what about this? And,
We need a Q&A and
yeah,
Absolutely.
all that kind of stuff.
They answer all those questions too,
Okay.
from the audience. I sat in on one for Rib Mountain when I worked for them, because they had a bunch of people there too, asking probably similar questions to what you're asking. And they had a huge presentation with 5 other guys that had come in, and each of them, they explained how they would kind of work with the concerns of the population that was there.
okay.
Mr. Volume, like you do for Highway 15 though for that,
Mhm.
because
This is a
It's gonna be
top-notch
concerned.
organization. In fact, their most targeted parcel was the 40-acre Badun property, so it would be the Clegg property on TT. They wanted that big. They wanted to go that big and potentially do a 40-acre development. But then knowing that they would not allow for the high-speed or high-volume development in that Hortonia lands, they backed it off. So we gave them the best option. You know, we proposed the other parcel by Kelly Way, across from the junkyard up there, too small. We started with the 6 acres here, too small. They want that 80 number development, so they want to make it worth their investment. They're currently doing their most recent is in Plover, that's 120 development. So again, each of these is valued, each of the units is valued at about $100,000 to $110,000 an increment. So these aren't shambles. These are
are they worried at all about renting it due to the view to the toy factory?
I don't think so, you know, because that was, the site location.
Well, I mean, the cemetery is one thing, but the
Yeah.
toy factory is not exactly a beautiful building.
No, I mean,
Quiet neighbors.
no.
Yeah, quiet neighbors.
Every time I drive by the cemetery.
Essentially,
There
you got,
is
you got,
nothing wrong
you
with
got train tracks right
cemeteries.
behind it too, so I mean, they didn't factor any of that, did they?
Yeah, I'm not saying pump the brakes on it, I'm just saying, there's concerns that
Absolutely.
need to absolutely be addressed, thoroughly
I say
before.
go through with
Yeah.
it, go forward with it, but I think that we need to make sure that we're allowing the public to be involved in understanding and answering their questions, because
Absolutely.
to your point, there's going to be concern.
Yeah,
A little more background this time.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to be right up front.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I will address that with him.
Yeah,
That is one of the first questions I ask when I'm qualifying these
yeah.
developers. Section 8? Nope, perfect. Section 8? Yep, not interested. Because we don't need it. We don't need it for Chris's team, and, you know, it's a matter of fact. Unfortunately, I don't, as stupid
And
as
we
it
have a lot
sounds.
of it in
Yeah.
a small little village,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
with qualified.
We have a need though for this type of rental. There are people that are asking for it. Yeah, I'll give you the contrary. So we looked at the property to the east of Gilbert's Grocery Store. The village owns approximately a 1 acre parcel there. I also work with the Horizon Group, a company based out of Green Bay. They had a site plan that was proposed for that. That was a 32 unit, 36 unit, 6 units being townhomes, 30 unit being a 3-level high-rise underground parking. That would have been a $1.3 million infrastructure inlet from the village, and we would not have seen a return on that for 11 years. So that's the difference, you know. It would have been a higher end 55 community, but it just wasn't, the economics weren't there. They would have required 800,000 input and then 500,000 on the backside for taxes. So this is something that is more a feasible investment for the village.
Okay.
That's all I have.
David, I have a quick question, back to that, and it's a very quick question, back to that, the MLS grant.
Yes.
Are we purchasing land to do the plan that they're planning, or that you've got here? I'm looking at the future city square, which is Tom Oak's property. Is the village looking at purchasing that?
It's been proposed.
Okay, just curious.
It'd be nice.
It's come
someday.
across.
Right over my living room window, but I mean, it's just one of those, I just know Tom has, yeah, okay. It's just in this proposal.
Essentially, he's dangled the carrot numerous times
Yeah.
because he's the way Peter always relays it is he's the contributor to a lot of the park and rec stuff for the future, and he may want to divulge some of his property, so.
Yep.
There will be a significant cut out of there though when they redo Highway 15 because they're gonna have a turning lane on that corner, so.
It'd be nice to get parking back in front of our house again. I don't know if that's part of your plan, but
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be nice.
yeah, we'd have a turn, if everything goes right.
A turn
We'd have
lane, if
a
everything
turn
goes
lane, a little square there, and we're also looking at possibly, again, we pay appraised value, we don't know more.
I know. I was just curious because it
We're
was a
looking at one
plan.
other piece of property too, for the trail system
I was kinda curious, so, all right,
on Mill Street. so.
yeah. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
I just
Any other questions?
wanted to ask about the administrator review. You had that written here.
Yes.
Were we gonna schedule that for soon, or?
We talked
Because the
about
year-
January, right?
Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
push
I mean,
that.
we're gonna ask on our December 19th meeting, we're gonna ask for a cancellation of the January 2nd village board meeting. Because we don't have any topics that we need to cover on January 2, and I think it'd be a rush to come back right after the holidays on that Thursday. So on our next meeting, we're gonna ask for a cancellation to the January 2 village board meeting. So we could do it either prior to the 16th, or we could do it earlier, or we could do it on the 16th as a committee of the whole. I'd be prepared for that as well, too. It's at your discretion.
Move to B, clerk treasurer.
I just wanted to say that we have an employee that celebrated 25 years with the village, which is commendable, I think. And that was Lisa Basaki. So if you see her, yeah, give her the shout out. I asked her to take a picture and put it on Facebook, but she said no. That's all I have.
C, director of public works.
Just a couple of items. Again, the Public Works Committee meeting, we'll schedule that at the first meeting in January, so no use trying to figure it out right now until after the holidays. We had another lateral failure over in what we call the Hortonville 5 area, which is Honeysuckle Drive. We had a resident over there who reported excessive water coming into their sump pump, and we tried to find it, and we finally did after getting some specialists in here. What's happening over there is that was installed in the late 90s, I believe, Bob, somewhere in there. Yeah. And the copper used that runs from the main of the road to the curb box, that section of pipe belongs to the village, or it's village's responsibility. Anyways, that copper that's used is of inferior quality. So we've had 3 now failures in that area. And these are pinholes. They started out as pinholes. So we've been losing water in the utility, and we're not quite sure where. It's very, very difficult to find it until it completely blows a big 3/4 inch hole in there. So we've had a resident over there whose sump pump has been running nonstop for quite a while, and it did it the last time, and it did it the time before. So I'm gonna probably talk to Public Works Committee, see if we can do something for that resident. They've been paying a lot of electricity to pump this water. They happen to live at the lowest portion of that road, and all the water drains down to their lateral and runs into their basement or their sump pump. And again, we're just gonna tackle these as they pop up. I don't think I wanna dig up every lateral in the neighborhood. I'm thinking it's just confined to the areas that are lower, where the water naturally comes out of the ledge rock, carries a lot of acidic soil and minerals with it. So again, it's just aggressive soils are eating it away. The copper we put in the 1940s in the original water system is as good as the day it was put in. So that just tells you about the quality that's out there nowadays. Well, nowadays I do nothing but spec poly pipe, plastic. But we were still using copper for laterals in the late 90s and early 2000s. So we're going to have more of these, I'm sure, down the road. The snow pusher blade that you guys authorized me to have constructed and pay for out of Public Works Equipment Fund, and then once we got the payment for FEMA, I would reimburse that fund. Anyways, that snow pusher blade's working even better than we expected. The guys love it, and it did a really quick job of cleaning up downtown. So we're happy about that.
Leaf sweeper.
Tell you about the leaf sweeper.
Oh yeah, the street sweeper's been working. We moved it today and we found a big grease leak, so we don't know what's going on there. We just submitted the application for the new wastewater treatment plant permit. Once we get this permit, we don't know we got an idea that we're gonna have stricter phosphorus limits for our discharge. So we may be looking at the possibility of spending some money on some kind of tertiary filtration equipment. So I haven't priced it, but could be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. I know, Jim, you want lower rates, but you know the DNR is, or the EPA is coming down hard on municipalities while ignoring farmers and the people that really cause the problem. Municipalities contribute about 10% of the loading onto our tributaries and rivers and lakes. The farmers contribute about 90%, but the only ones they go after are the municipalities. So right now we're probably looking at a limit of about 0.18 parts per million. Right now, with the way the wastewater treatment plant's running with that screw press, we're probably around 0.3 to 0.4. So we're already running it pretty darn clean. To get it that little bit cleaner is going to cost people a lot more money. So, but I don't think we're going to have to raise rates because we're going to have some debt coming off here in 2 years. So we'll be able to probably still lower rates and purchase machinery and still operate as efficiently as they expect us to. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Carl? Now we'll move to D, Police Chief.
Handed everybody the November 2019 report. Anybody's got any questions? We did a posting on Facebook about the safe room. Needless to say, Facebook kind of blocked me until I can prove that I'm the person that I am, or it's the police department, because it's showing that we reached a lot of people. So we had the 29,000 people who saw the Safe Room post. Even the media saw the Facebook post and called us for an interview. And then we had the hit and run that week where 59,000 people saw that post too. So it's good for Facebook because then people start liking it and we can get messages out through Facebook. So this weekend we have 3 of our officers that are going to participate in Shop with a Cop. They're doing that with the Oneida Green Bay, Seymour police departments. So that might be something that we can look at doing next year for the kids in our local area. So 3 officers are going to see how that's done, but they're representing Hortonville. And then the following week, the 14th, the library and the police department are putting on the Cookies with a Cop. We have a Santa Claus and a Mrs. Claus. We have 3 elves. We're giving away 2 Christmas trees. We have 600 cookies. So it's going to be a good time. Mark your calendars. Bring your grandchildren or your children.
What's the date on
Anything
that?
else?
14th.
14th, 1 to 4.
Any questions for? Now we'll move to E, Library Director.
For programming updates, I just have, we're continuing our program series with the UW Extension. So we had a brain fitness program that had pretty solid attendance. And we have a program this coming Monday night called Money Matters, and it's basic money management, which has gathered a lot of interest. I've had anywhere from quote unquote millennials all the way up to people 50 plus who have been interested. So that's been pretty exciting to see. We have about 4 people signed up and more interested on Facebook. So we're anticipating about 6 or 7, which Karen Dickrell of the UW Extension believes this program is more effective when it's a smaller group because it's more of a discussionary group. So she's really looking forward to that. We have a DIY ornament making program coming up on Monday the 19th at 3. It's in conjunction with the Senior Activities Committee, so it's right after the birthday potluck that they do on the 3rd Monday of each month for kids and teens 13 plus to kind of get some of that intergenerational programming going between seniors and our teens. We have a Lego showdown that we're going to host on Friday, December 27th at 1 o'clock. The kids don't have school that week and we are open the 26th, 27th, 28th. So we wanted to provide something or somewhere for families to come just to have some fun during their break. We ran our Food for Fines program for 5 weeks at the end of October through the end of November. All food raised went to the Hortonville Community Food Pantry. And we had a total of 39 accounts that were cleared. 11 of those accounts had been blocked in our system. So once your fines reach a certain limit, you are no longer able to check items out, use the computers, any of that. Those privileges are gone. And 11 accounts were unblocked. So we were very excited to have people have access to us again, which people look forward to every year. I think we had 7 big boxes of food donated to the food pantry. Some people were bringing in food that didn't have fines. They're like, oh, I just saw it advertised, I'll bring in some stuff. So we were really excited about that. We did have somebody bring in some items the day that it was picked up. And unfortunately, they had just picked up the items. But I did say, hey, we're gonna have a little free food pantry coming. If you'd like, for this one instance, I can waive your fines and we'll put it towards that. So it was a teenager from the high school whose account had been blocked. So I wanted to make sure that he still had access to our services. And he was really excited about still being able to donate for the pantry. So that was exciting. And then in November, we had 17 more people sign up for new cards, which was pretty cool.
Any questions for Ally? Now we'll move to F, Attorney.
Nothing, let's see.
Okay. G is the building permit report. It is in the packet. Are there any questions? H is municipal court report.
And I didn't include anything, there's not a lot to update. We had court last night, so we are done with court for this calendar year. We had approximately 70 citations as part of the docket, and there has been an influx in some citations that are a lot more detailed lately, a lot of OWI citations. So there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of things going on with that upcoming. We do have the largest trial date scheduled for February, so the largest one that we've had will be coming up on February 12th. So that's about it. Anything else for us?
Any questions for Christina? We'll move to number 11. A, Black Otter Lake District News.
No updates, there's a meeting on the 16th, or I'm sorry,
Next week.
Wednesday,
Yep, this coming Wednesday.
Wednesday.
The
yeah,
9th, right?
16th.
B,
Oh, no,
18th,
This
11th.
Wednesday.
18th, is that a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, a
18th
week
is
But the
Wednesday.
11th is next Wednesday.
So 18th, a week from
18th.
next Wednesday
Yeah.
is the meeting, I'm sorry.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay, I had 11.
Did you get a new email that I didn't get?
No.
Okay.
I'll check.
11th would be better for me, but one of those Wednesdays at 6 o'clock.
My bad, I had the 11th, so.
B
You
is
might be right.
Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
Other than the meeting last night, just, like I said, I'm prepared to, propose the fee structure for the December 19th meeting, which would, entail just, accident scene recovery, non-fire, just for, highway cleanup and spills and accidents.
C is Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, and Peter is out. E is Senior Activities Committee.
We had our holiday dinner on Monday, as David reported, and I think everybody really enjoyed the time they had in the Opera House together. Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, we're carpooling from here to Oshkosh for Menominee Park for the light show, and I think we have about 12 people signed up. And I think I talked to Lisa about if people call, if you could just write their names down at the village office, and we'll meet at 5 and we'll just group together and drive down, and it's a drive-through, so nobody gets out, you just ride through the lights, so. And then Ally mentioned the ornament making. We're looking forward to that. I think, what did I say, 6 or 7 people signed up for that from our group?
Yep.
So, it'll be a good mix. That's all I have.
Okay. 12 is comments and suggestions from citizens present.
I'm not a citizen of the village, I'm not a Section 8 developer either. But I bought a lot on Emily Way last July. I received a special assessment bill back in July. On the municipal letter, it indicated no special assessment pending. The seller of the property says he had no knowledge of it, which surprised me somewhat because under state law, I think he's supposed to be notified. I just want to know how this happened.
Okay, how was your closing handled?
Through Evans Title, the listing realtor was with Century 20.
Okay. Was there a condition report
I think so,
by the seller?
yes.
Well, and there,
I-
The Evans
I
Title-
question that side, and
right, and I would assume Evans Title would have sent a letter to us.
There was an error.
Oh, there was? Okay. Okay, normally, you know, that's not gonna happen because first off, in the condition report, I don't, who would the owner be? Do we know?
I don't know, but I'm not gonna say it's impossible, because I don't wanna get to that point, but, I live in that neighborhood. and I'm part of that assessment. And I was one of the 2 neighborhood representatives when the negotiation went on for that. And myself and a couple of the neighborhood residents either spoke with or left notifications and paperwork on every residence's porch, door, everything, mailbox, everything that we could possibly do to inform everyone what was going on, and to provide a consensus opinion of how we should move forward with it. So it is, like I said, it's possible they weren't aware, but in my opinion, it's fairly unlikely. It was a very hot topic, and it was in fact, for that neighborhood, there's still a Facebook group, special assessment for the Parker Heights, that a lot of the neighborhood group are still posting stuff too. So I don't know how it could get missed legally, but you know, I think that there's probably some obligation for them to disclose that before they sell it.
It's on the condition report, so given that, you probably can make an inquiry.
So what you're saying is, it's highly likely that he was notified?
It is very highly likely that the owner of the property, or I shouldn't say the owner, the occupant of the property. So if it was somebody other than the owner. What's that?
It's a vacant lot.
Oh, it's a vacant lot. Then
It was mailed.
it was mailed.
It was mailed to that parcel, because what we do is we grab all the parcels.
Who owned that one? Vans?
I didn't look into it,
Vans doesn't have any on
but I can look at it tomorrow. We have
Okay.
a list of every address we sent things to, because we save those. It's in our Brookwood Drive file, so.
Yeah. Do you recall the seller?
I want to say John Andrews, I have it up in my car, if it's
Yeah.
critical.
Okay. So there is no resident, so
I think it was like an MJ Builders
Okay.
is what it was, I believe. But
So it's a vacant lot, it gets mailed to that address?
Going to
the parcel, through the county, the parcel has to be registered with a mailing address. So it was sent to the mailing address that the owner of that parcel is. So it could have been outside the village, but it was still mailed to that person's mailing address.
Just out of curiosity, if it comes back to the village, what's your procedure then? Do you just stuff it in the file, or is there any further
I don't think we've had
effort
that
to try
issue.
to?
No, we haven't had that issue.
No. We didn't have that
If that
issue.
did happen, what would you do? Just stuff it in the file?
There's no
No,
file.
I-
to stuff in.
We could try calling the county, try getting ahold of them, talking to our assessor.
Would you do that, or would you just leave it like?
Oh, no, we would not leave it late.
Okay.
Because this last special assessment, the Brookwood one, we got one back and I found out the guy lives in Neenah.
Okay, so
So we
there's some.
remailed it, so
there's
we
some
do,
follow-up, okay.
yes.
So who I give my check to tonight here? Anybody?
The drop
I
off.
guess I'll take that.
Okay.
If it's any consolation, that was a much larger assessment. If it's any consolation, that was a much larger
I was
assessment.
gonna
than-
say, if this would be like 3,000 or 5,000, I'd really be upset.
Yeah, it started out around 3,600.
Oh. And what exactly is gonna happen?
The street that connects Gabriel all the way to, is that Brookwood, or the corner of Brookwood and Emily? They're the street that runs along the backside of those apartments.
Yeah.
That's the street that went in. That's what the assessment was to pay for. It was a unique situation where the street was part of the initial plat for the subdivision. And years later, it was developed. There's 5 properties going in on the south side of that road. Now that road has been completed, there's 5 vacant lots right there. So the assessment paid for that road to get put in, and the subdivision to be completed.
How did you whittle it down? I mean, the cost is the cost.
A lot of arguing.
Most of the village picked up.
Mhm.
a large-
The
The
village
village
absorbed it.
absorbed a lot. There were some compromises made. There's things like the concerns for the residents in that neighborhood were that we didn't want the neighborhood, because it's a very quiet neighborhood, we didn't want it connected to outside. Originally, that road was supposed to go through to the other, to that other apartment complex, which would have connected our neighborhood to another neighborhood and would have presented a way to get through the neighborhood out to 15 again. So that's why it goes to Gabriel and just turns and comes back into so it basically becomes a loop inside the neighborhood now. There's no parking on the side of the roads by the apartment complexes to try to avoid having that become a de facto parking lot for the apartment complexes. There were trees that were planted by Public Works along that road to try to break up the skyline. I think there was a few other, the Public Works contributed a significant amount of money to reduce the assessment, and then there were some other things that we addressed that I'm probably not thinking of right now to do cost reductions.
This is a very unusual situation. There's an agreement back in 2001, what laid the framework for why you're paying it now. It's very, very unique, right, Bob?
Yeah.
And bottom line is, all the project costs, from the trees, which weren't part of the assessment, signs, all that stuff, the engineering, lot development. The only thing that the assessment was based on was, for you guys, was 29% of the road construction cost only. So that's how we whittled it down, so.
Does it cause you a problem in the future when you have special assessments in another part of the village and they say, well, you whittled it down for those guys, you're gonna do it for me?
You mean like set a precedent?
Well-
Yeah, this is a very unusual
Let me answer that.
factual situation that's not gonna be replicated. So, yeah, I don't think it's a precedent.
Either way, he should have notified them.
Yeah, it's unlikely that any other
Yeah.
development in the
notified at the
village
sale.
will go to expansion after 17 years and still grandfather in. Everybody has to pay for a piece that is nowhere near their property.
Welcome to politics, right?
Yeah. I wasn't here at the time, I was sitting in your seat when this went through.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you. I would just like to make one comment before we adjourn. I would like to thank you, Dave, your staff, Nathan, all of you for working so hard on this budget. You did a wonderful job. Thank you so much. And then 13 is a motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anybody is now